As you can see here, I took the engine out of the frame in one piece. So the plan is to get as much of the dirt off the engine with the covers on it. And then once we get to that point, I'll take the cam cover, the primary cover, and the push rod covers off and get the rest of the dirt off. Here's some of the items I'm going to use to clean the engine. Just some cheap toothbrushes, some fine steel wool, some green Scotch-Brite, aluminum brightener that I got from Napa, some alcohol, and some of that orange degreaser, and a refill because I'm going to use a lot of it. I didn't show me scrubbing these cases. I thought that'd be kind of boring for you guys, but here it is after the first pass, using a lot of degreaser with the cover still on it. I think we probably have about 95% of the dirt off of it. And once we take off the push rod covers, the cam cover, and the primary cover, we'll be able to get that last 5%. Does it look new? No, but at least it looks clean, and that's what we're shooting for. Just as detailed and as clean as we can get it, and I think we're heading in the right direction here. Here we are after we did the first pass on the bottom of the engine cases. Overall, we probably got once again 95% of the dirt off using a lot of degreaser, toothbrushes, steel wool, and Scotch Brite. Now, once the covers come off, once again, once that cam cover comes off, we'll be able to clean up by the oil pump there and really give this thing an overall clean look so it can get ready to be put back into the frame. Anytime you're working with something that's 50 plus years old, whether you're rebuilding it, restoring it, you're bound to find problems. And you hope that they're all minor. And I didn't notice this problem until I had downloaded the video and pictures to my computer. And once I saw them up on a bigger screen, I said to myself, is that a crack? And I went out into the garage and flipped the engine over, and sure enough, the cases are cracked. Now you'll see where they're cracked. It's one of the three studs that the rear motor mount bolts to. And when I first saw it, I said to myself, I'll bet you money somebody at the factory drove that stud in too far and cracked the case right there. Because the stud is solid and the nut that holds the rear motor mount on, when I turned it, it's solid. So I think, the cases were probably inspected before that stud went in. And so since it didn't leak oil and it didn't affect the bike, nobody caught it. So what I did was I spoke to three different people about this crack. One guy, he's been around for years. He's got a machine shop. He's been building Harleys and drag racing them for probably 50 years now. And when I showed him the pictures, he said, I've seen that before. He agreed with me that he felt the person that built that engine drove that stud in too far, and that's how it cracked. He also said, since I wasn't going to tear it apart, if it was him, he'd just put it in and run it. He said if it hasn't leaked oil or broke by now, it's probably not going to. So after I spoke to him, I was thinking about that, and I was like, God, I hate to just put the engine back the way it is, knowing that that stud has a hairline crack around it. So the second guy I spoke to, he actually welds Harley cases. And I've seen some of his work, and this guy just does a phenomenal job. So I sent him the photos of it and told him, this was a low mile bike and I really didn't want to tear it apart. And I asked him if I brought the engine to him, would he weld it? And he said no. And the reason being, he said he wanted the engine tore apart and the cases split so he could put the cases in an oven, heat them up before he welded that crack. And I totally agree with him, and I totally get that. The next guy I talked to was a guy I've known since we were kids in grade school. And he has a side-by-side. And he was out doing side-by-side stuff, and he hit something. And when he did, it broke the cases or the block of the engine on his side-by-side. And he had oil coming out everywhere. But he said the engine ran fine. And he really didn't want to take it out. So he found this product. It's called Marine Tex. It's made to repair boat hulls and bond metal panels. And he used that to repair the hole in the block. And he said the stuff dries like concrete. And ever since he put it on there, he said it's yet to move and it doesn't leak a drop of oil. So as I thought about it, I said to myself, why don't I get some of this stuff and just reinforce the area where that hairline crack is and just monitor it and see if it gets worse and or leaks. Here's the Marine Tex Gray. This is what comes in the box. You get some instructions, you get the material, and then you get a catalyst, and it's 5-to-1. Since this is my first time using this stuff, I'm going to go ahead and just mix it all up, even though I'm not going to use that much. I just want to make sure I get the ratio right and only have to do it one time. I have it taped off now, so we'll mix this stuff up and put it on there and see what happens. Okay, we're going to start mixing this stuff. So it's kind of a dark gray. We're just going to get it all out of the cup and mix the whole amount. What I did is I just cut out some small pieces of cardboard and I'll just kind of use those as a putty knife. I think we're gonna leave it like that. It's kind of like concrete. You start trying to finish it too much and you'll screw it up. So, we can always sand it too. We're gonna give it a few minutes and then we're gonna pull that tape off. What I did was wait about 3 or 4 minutes and then I pulled the tape off because the last thing I wanted to do is have the Marine Tex stuck to the tape. Here it is after drying 24 hours. The instructions said that you can put a pigment into it if you want to change the color of it, which I probably should have put some paint into it to make it a little lighter gray. And what we're gonna do is, since they say you can paint this stuff, we're gonna go ahead and just lightly sand it, tape it up, and we're gonna paint it a little lighter gray. Here's the area. I scuffed it up with sandpaper, then wiped it down with alcohol, then taped it off. And what we're gonna do is put a little bit of primer on it, and then we're gonna put some of this satin gray on it. And I didn't go out and buy any paint. What I just did, I happen to have this stuff on the shelf, so we're just gonna do that and just kind of help take your eye off of that area. Here it is after a coat of primer and 2 coats of that gray paint. So I think it's just enough to kind of keep your eye off of it once it's in the frame. And what I'll do is I'll just keep an eye on it and see what happens. I got it all taped up now. All I need to do is wipe it down with alcohol one last time, and I think we're ready to paint. So this is what I have. I have some VHT Wrinkle Plus coating. I have some PJ1 500 degree wrinkle black, and I have some PJ1 1500 degree flat black. The problem with the wrinkle paints is they typically recommend that you heat the cylinders and heads up first and then paint them and then heat them up again. And I really don't have any way to do that. Even if I had a heat gun, I don't think I could get it hot enough. So I think we're gonna just go with the flat black. And I know that's not ideal, but you know, anything's gonna look better than what it looks like now. So I think that's the route we're gonna go, and we'll see what it looks like. Always wear gloves, long sleeves, and a mask. All right, there's the first coat. I just put it on lightly. We'll let it dry for like 20 minutes, and then we'll apply a second coat. Here we are after the second coat of paint. I'm trying to concentrate to get in between the fins. You know, I think it's gonna look okay. I'm gonna end up using the whole can of paint, so if it's 3 coats, it's 3. If it's 4, it's 4. I'm sure once I go to start it, it'll smoke pretty good, but as long as it's black, I think we'll be all right. Okay, that's coat number 4. I think what we'll do is put on one more light coat, and I think we're gonna call it. It's looking pretty black. I think it's gonna look okay. I know it's not the typical wrinkle paint, but it's the 1500 degree high temperature paint, and I think it'll look all right. The next thing I need to do is disassemble the rocker boxes. Then once they're apart, I can begin the polishing process. The next step is to wash the rocker boxes to get all the buffing compound and sanding grit out of them and get them ready for assembly. As you can see here, I have the rocker boxes polished. I have the rocker shafts and rocker arms installed back into the rocker boxes with new oil seals, and then the rocker boxes installed back onto the heads. So the engine itself is ready to go back into the frame. Over here on the frame, I have the swing arm installed, so we're ready to go there. And I also have all the motor mount bolts cleaned up, ready to bolt the engine back into the frame. I'll have to admit, it's been a while, but this is the next major step in getting this bike done. You know, a few years ago, I would have just picked the engine up and put it in the frame. But I was watching a biker build off years ago, and I saw Arlen Ness. He said to work smart, not hard. And what he did is he laid the engine flat, and then he put the frame over the engine, bolted the engine to the frame, and then flipped it up. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, now that the frame is over the engine, we can start bolting on the motor mounts. Here's the engine bolted back into the frame. It was pretty uneventful. It bolted right up and just flipped it back over. I guess it's just another milestone getting the engine back into the frame, but I'll take it so I can start bolting some parts back on this bike. I've been waiting to do that. So we'll take it and keep moving forward. Everything's just one step closer, I guess. You know, to all the people that are watching this video and have an opinion of what I should have done with that cracked area around that stud, I just want to say I'm probably going to agree with everybody. From the person who will say you should have just put it back in the frame and ran it, to the people that'll say, hey, use the marine text to reinforce that area, to the guys that'll say, hey, you should have tore that engine apart and had it welded before you put it back in. Everybody's got a valid point, and I agree with everyone on that. But I did what I had to do with that. If that stud was loose in there or it was leaking oil, I would have done a video about me tearing this engine apart, taking the cases and getting them welded and putting the engine back together again. But I didn't have to do that. So I did what I had to do, especially with this bike being built on a budget. So once again, I'll monitor it. I got a mirror. I'll slide a mirror underneath the frame. I'll watch it. And if it starts to crack, then yeah, you'll see me doing a video of tearing that engine out and breaking it down and having it welded. But until then, we're just going to keep on moving forward with this project. So if you can, please like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.